Preparing live stream. Hello, welcome to Coffee with Cohen. Today is Monday, October 27th. I am broadcasting to you today from my home in Hoboken. Welcome to this, my 113th Coffee with Cohen community event. Coffee with Cohen is my opportunity to keep in touch with you about important issues affecting our community. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we have a distinguished group of people joining us, and I want to tell you a little bit about them. First, I want to welcome Council Member Emily Jabbour, uh, Tina Emily, Council Slay, Councilman Joe Quintero, Commissioner Steve Firestone, and Caitlin Layson. And I'd like to provide a little bit of background about the whole crew, if you guys would indulge me. I want to start by introducing my council colleagues, Emily and Joe. Emily has lived in Hoboken since 2008. She was first elected to the city council in 2017. She was reelected in 2021, and she has spent over 18 years serving as a trained social worker working for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Emily is a graduate of Boston College and Columbia School of Social Work, where she gained her social work skills. Emily is a dedicated community volunteer. She's a mentor. She's a founder of the Hudson County chapter of Moms Demand Action. She and her husband, Peter, are proud parents of two daughters who attend Hoboken's public schools. On the council, Emily is a champion of Vision Zero. She is a champion of constituent services, and she's a champion of rent control for renters. And with that, I'm going to turn to my intro to Joe, my other council colleague. Joe is running for re-election. Of all the people running for city council, and there are quite a few out there on the ballot, Joe is the only one who's actually running for re-election. Joe is a proven leader on our most important issues. From day one, Joe has led on public safety issues, instituting community and public safety forums. Some of you may have attended one of them. Ensuring our firefighters are appropriately staffed and hiring more cops to tackle quality of life issues. Joe has also led the charge on standing up to landlords, protecting renters, preserving Hoboken's rent control and affordability protections. He's a renter himself. Joe is also an engaged public servant, and I'm proud to call Joe my friend. Steve Firestone, who is here. Welcome, Steve. Steve and I were fellow commissioners on the Hoboken Zoning Board many moons ago. We worked together as fellow commissioners for a number of years. On the zoning board, Steve earned the reputation of being smart, prepared, and a good listener. This past year, Steve was elected by his fellow commissioners to serve as the chair of the zoning board. Steve is also an associate professor, his paying job of finance. He chairs the Department of Business at Drew University. And finally, Caitlin. Caitlin is born and raised in Hoboken. She's worked in Hoboken's public school systems as a special education teacher. Caitlin attended the Wallace School, Mustard Seed, and the Hudson School for high school. Caitlin is also a tenant. She understands the importance of protecting renters, keeping Hoboken affordable. She has a passion for public service. She is the mother of an adorable one-year-old daughter. And as a young parent, she knows the challenges facing Hoboken's young families. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to the Coffee with Cohen.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So my first question for all of you, and you can take it. I think we'll go with Emily first, and then we'll go with the council folks. I'm wondering if you could tell the viewers of Coffee with Cohen something about yourself that will help them understand why you're running for mayor, Emily, and then I'll ask the same question to the council candidates.
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having us. Always nice to see you, Phil. I think, for me, running for mayor was not in my life's plan. I did not set out to get involved in politics. I was initially kind of lured in and discussed getting involved with local politics with Mayor Zimmer. My daughters were young. I was getting more involved locally, and Mayor Zimmer sort of planted the seed of wanting to get more involved and potentially on the city council. My background in social work means I come to this with a strong sense of public service. For me, that was what getting involved in local politics looked like, advocating for my community, trying to get things done for the sake of making this a safer city for my children. That's what kind of drew me in. And over 8 years on the city council, I've seen what it feels like to be effective in that role. Whether it's on Vision Zero, like you mentioned, whether it's rent control protections, the local governance makes such a difference in people's everyday lives. And I think sometimes that's overlooked. I know that the turnout of national elections is always much, much higher than your local elections. And it's really a shame because there are so many things that are impacted on a day-to-day basis by your local elected officials. So I've taken it very seriously, that role on the city council. From day one, I have been involved with constituent services, whether I was hearing from neighbors or getting tagged on Facebook. I am the most responsive council member because I think that's where you really count on your local government officials to be responsive, to be interested in problem solving. And that's kind of what drew me into the role of being mayor. You know, you see enough of those small things and you think about the system and whether or not the system at the city hall level is working. So I'm excited for a vision of city hall that's more responsive, that's more engaged in the community, and works better for all of us.
Yeah. And I'll say this, Emily, that when I saw every now and then I'd see it, I would get tagged or people would get tagged on Facebook with a question or concern. And when I first started serving 6 years ago, I would respond every now and then. And I just was like, how is it possible that Emily actually answers every single one of these questions? At some point, I was just like, you know what? Emily's got this. Like, I just took a step back because like it's really remarkable what you do and how responsive you are. And I know it really affects the lives of a lot of people in our community.
Thank you.
I'll now turn to the council members well, council candidates. Council member Quintero first. Can you say something about yourself to help folks who may not know you understand why you're running for council, why you're running for reelection?
Sure, and I'll also say I'm with you, Phil. After 2 weeks of trying to keep up with Emily on the council and on Facebook, I just said, "Well, looks like this is in good hands." But yeah, look, I think it's a similar path, but different. In that, I was growing up, I was always interested in politics and this idea of fairness and how, government should really be in place to help you be able to live your life to its fullest potential. And it doesn't always work that way. It's always about, as often it's been about who you know, not what you know and what you can do, and really enabling those things. But locally, it was always seemed like a bridge too far, like something that other people do. My parents, immigrating to this country and me kind of growing up, not even knowing anyone. When I went to law school, that was the first time I ever like met other people who were like lawyers to any substantial effect. So it was very much a fish out of water scenario. But then getting involved locally with the Hoboken Democrats, which is where I met you, that started to draw the connective tissue and see that, oh, people like me, regular people actually get involved with these things. And then again, when I had the opportunity 4 years ago to run alongside Emily and Councilmember Doyle, um, that was the opportunity. I think that was when I thought I couldn't pass this up, this opportunity really to put some of my values and the things that I believed in to action and see if it could work. And I'm really proud over the past 4 years to have been focusing on really the core issues that matter to people's lives, which is, are they safe moving around town? Do they feel safe moving around town? The connectivity with the people who do that from our public safety infrastructure, and then also, do they feel secure in their own homes from a financial perspective? Can they afford to live here? That has been increasingly under attack over the last few years. I didn't actually anticipate the level of which it would get so intense and the increases that we would see, but that's really what drew our attention to make sure that we passed a lot of the laws and more to come, hopefully, that really would bring equity back between the relationship between landlords and tenants. So again, just focusing on those core fundamental things that people worry about from a day-to-day perspective is what we've been focused on, what I've been focused on, and what I think this team will be focused on moving forward.
Great. I'll go to Caitlin next. Caitlin, maybe you could tell folks something about yourself and why it is that you're running for the council.
Sure. So like Phil said, I'm a lifelong Hoboken resident, a former special education teacher in our public schools at Connors specifically, for many years. And now I'm a first-time mom raising my daughter in Hoboken and, starting my family here. And, I decided to run for city council and after Emily had asked me and, after a lot of thinking a lot about what I could bring to to the council, um, I've seen through Joe and Emily's work how real progress comes from listening, building relationships, and uh, creating solutions that actually work for people. And as a teacher, I spent many years advocating for my students and making sure that their IEPs were honored and that every child received the services that they were entitled to and deserved. So, and showing up for parents who couldn't always show up or advocate in the same way. So that experience taught me the power of transparency, collaboration, importantly, and trust. And that's exactly, what I hope to bring to city council and our local government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, clearly, as a special ed teacher, you affected a lot of families and a lot of lives. And I think, as a council person, you really are in that position to really affect so many people and help them.
Yeah.
And I'll turn to you, Steve, Commissioner Firestone. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in running for city council.
Fantastic. Thanks, Phil, and thanks for having us today. Um, unlike a lot of folks, I actually started off in politics as a little kid without really knowing it. My mother was a mayor, only the second woman to ever serve as mayor of Princeton Township, New Jersey. And one of the things she really instilled in me is the idea that, in any community you live in, you should really try to serve in whatever best way you can. So when I was a little kid, she used to haul me around to like planning meetings and things like that. So I learned how to read site plans at a very early age. So I've been very involved in land use for a number of years. I've served on Hoboken Zoning Board for 6 years, 2 years as chairman, but I've served on planning and zoning boards throughout the country, trying Charlotte, North Carolina, and Bernards Township, New Jersey. Now, trying to make sure that I be able to provide something back to the community that's based on the skill set that I have. One of the things that, she also instilled in me is the idea that you can approach government in a nonpartisan way, in a way that you can have an elevated civic discourse with people you disagree with. And, that's something that I haven't always seen in Hoboken. When I first got to Hoboken in 1997, it was kind of a my way or the highway structure from the mayor that was there. And, we just have a really nasty history in Hudson County of corruption and things like that. And one of the reasons I'm running right now is I think there's a real concern about backsliding. There's a real concern that we won't be able to have, fairness, openness, transparency. I hear that when I'm talking to people in Hoboken that they feel like that's lacking. They want to see more of that. They want to have more of a voice. And, I think that based on my experience, based on how I've been, acting as zoning board chair, which is to make sure that everything's fair, every hearing is on the record, there's no backroom conversations, there's none of that stuff. It's all open to the public, and the public can always have a voice. Those are some of the things that really resonated with me and resonated for why I want to run now and why I want to run with this team in particular, because this team is all about, approaching this job from an ethical point of view, approaching it from a listening point of view. And that, a lot of times you hear politicians just keep talking at you. This is a group of people that is committed to public service and to listening.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I didn't mention this, but I have endorsed all of you. I've endorsed Emily to be the next mayor of Hoboken, and I believe that all of you really do offer that and are truly in this for all the right reasons. Steve, I don't know if we knew that. I don't know if we ever talked about this before, but my mom was the third woman mayor of Livingston. I don't know if my mom and your mom need to get together, but having a woman mayor mom was a very formative thing in my interest in public service as well. It's interesting we both have that in our families. So I have a question for all four of you, and again, I'd like to start with Emily and then go to the council candidates. You guys have been out there working hard. You've been talking to people, thousands of people. You've been going to forums. You've been answering questions. You've been answering questionnaires, and you've been fielding a ton of input as you're reaching out to the community for their support. And I'm wondering what issue or concern that you're hearing about most from voters on the trail, and if elected, how you're committed to addressing that issue or responding to the concern.
Sure. Well, I think the number one priority is safety. We need to make sure Hoboken is a safe community. And certainly as the mother of a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, my 13-year-old daughter who goes to Hoboken Middle School is often walking the city herself. And so I think about that often. For me, working with Chief Aguiar and under the leadership of Director Franti, things that we've talked about in terms of how to make the city safer, we need more resources with respect to community policing. And I think building out a community policing bureau is the first step to that. We have the capacity to hire an additional set of officers who can substantiate that team. And that puts more people on the street. It puts boots on the ground, so to speak. It puts officers on Washington Street to deter negative instances from happening there. It puts more officers on our waterfront and in our parks. There's a visibility factor to deterring crimes from happening. And I think that's a really important piece of this. Hoboken continues to be a safe community, but there have been some one-off instances in recent memory that we need to be responsive to and make sure that people continue to feel like this is a safe community. For me, also personally, I'll say, and I want to highlight the need for a responsive, transparent city hall that's listening. I think that there is something really important about being very hyper local and in the community. And that's why I make sure I'm always showing up, whether it's a fundraiser, whether it's a community event. I try to show up for people in all of the different spheres within Hoboken. It's not just for the sake of showing up with people who I know personally, but as an elected, to make sure that I show my respect by standing up in the room to be part of those other events. That's really important, and I want to take us back to that with respect to having neighborhood meetings, whether it's town hall meeting style, office hours around the city. Those are really important ways to show that you're listening as an elected, and as mayor, that I want to bring back and make sure they're front and center. I won't talk about the other priorities because I know my colleagues, I want to let them have a chance to talk about some of the other things with respect to affordability, certainly rent control, but they are also well versed, so I'm going to leave those to them.
All right. Well, Joe, issue that you're hearing about on the trail and how you would respond to it, or a concern that you would address if you're
Yeah,
reelected.
I'll double down on Emily's comments with respect to public safety and the Community Policing Bureau, and I'll also pass on the affordability issues because look, we put all these policies together so we can step on each other's toes. But one thing I'll continue on is this idea of transparent government and connectivity and the ability to work with City Hall. Again, Emily mentioned she's the most responsive council person in the history of Hoboken, which I agree. She didn't say that, but I'm gonna say it because it's true. And one of the things that we thought about is how do we make that part of City Hall in our government? And so one of the things that we're focused on early on is operationalizing hashtag Hoboken Emily, and we'll call it something else. But we want to staff up the Office of Constituent Services so that they can scan, whether manually or with some sort of software, instances where people are expressing problems, concerns, or whatsoever on any of the social media platforms. Right now, if you have a problem, the official way to communicate it to the city is to go through a portal or to call a 201 number. And look, in 2025, most people don't do that those ways. They go to Facebook, they go to Instagram and Reddit, and they air their grievances there. We should be meeting our constituents where they are. If this is the form in which they're complaining and logging real concerns, we should have a process, and we will have a process for identifying those things, vetting them, and reaching out in instances where those concerns are real. And so we're looking forward to doing that and really amping up our responsiveness to the city and meeting our constituents where they are.
Right. Caitlin, something that you're hearing about out there, how you would address it or respond to it if you were elected to the city council.
So one of the issues that I hear a lot about is at the doors is affordability. And as a renter myself, I understand that concern on a personal level. And when I hear that, I think of not just families, I think of our seniors. I also think of um, young adults who are in Hoboken that are worried about being priced out and priced out of the community that, has seen all of us through many stages of life. But, you know, I also think that affordability doesn't just uh, mean rent. I think it affects everything, our quality of life, our small businesses, and even how we support our unhoused neighbors in the long term. So when people can afford to stay in Hoboken and stay here, they can lay down roots. We can support local businesses and invest in the future of Hoboken. So I think that's what creates opportunities, and it'll keep our schools diverse. I feel like it leads into so many parts of our community and keeping our community connected. So I think as a team, we're very committed to addressing the affordability head on, which means protecting rent control, increasing the share of affordable housing and workforce housing in new developments, and making sure that the city is spending transparently and focused on our residents' needs. And we want to ensure that every new project contributes to Hoboken and keeping Hoboken livable for everyone. Um, because if it stays affordable and it stays accessible, we can make progress in so many other ways too.
Great, great. I'm there for that. Steve, how about you? Something you're hearing about, something that if you were elected to the council, something how you would address it or respond to what you're hearing out there on the trail.
Thanks, Phil. So I think the affordability issue is one that we keep hearing coming up again and again, but we also hear about transparency coming up again and again. So like when I'm out talking to people in Hoboken, a lot of them will talk about, well, this happened on Garage B and we didn't feel like we got a voice, or this happened on this other project and there was no community involvement. It just happened. I think that we have to get back to a more regular process for doing land use decisions so that we have community involvement regularly. I've lived in places before where the planning staff will go out and will do charrettes with local residents regularly to brief them on what's coming, to brief them on what the direction is that the city seems to be moving. We need to get back to that kind of responsiveness because I don't really think we've seen it from City Hall in quite some time. But I think Hoboken also, chronically overuses the idea of a redevelopment zone. And that's where, areas that were traditionally meant to be, remedied for blight, are allowed to have special zoning and things like that apply. I really, we have a lot of development that's going to happen in Hoboken over the next 10 years. There's going to be a lot of activity in the northwest part of Hoboken. I want to make sure that residents get a voice in that and that really critical needs are heard and incorporated into anything that we do. And that could include increased affordable housing. We have a 10% requirement now. I think everyone on Team Emily would agree that it really needs to go up from there, and that new development that we see in different parts of town really has to address the affordability crisis that we're seeing.
Great. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. Don't have any questions that have come in. I now go to the part of my Coffee with Cohen where I go through community updates, which include voting information. I'm going to share with people how to vote. Early voting has begun. I'm going to give more details about that and locations later. But I just personally, I want to thank all of you for taking this on, for engaging the community like this. I know how hard this is, how the toll it takes on your families, and the only reason that you do this is because you're doing this for our community. And just want to thank all of you for putting yourselves out there, for engaging with the community. I wish you all the best. I encourage all the viewers of Coffee with Cohen to check you guys out and to support you in your campaigns. And with that, you guys are free to do the rest of what you're going to do today. I'll see you out there on the
Thanks,
trail.
Phil.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Phil.
it.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Phil.
Phil.
Appreciate it.
All right. So thanks again to Emily, Joe, Caitlin, and Steve. And now I'm going to go for some local updates. So first, an update that I have. This was actually as a picture which I was going to show of me with the crew. No Kings. City Council at our last meeting affirmed that Hoboken is a fair and welcoming city. I proudly sponsored the Hoboken Trust Act, which codified into law Hoboken's longstanding commitment to being a fair and welcoming city. The Hoboken Trust Act ensures that Hoboken will not cooperate with ICE detainer requests or administrative warrants that lack a valid judicial order. It also formally commits Hoboken to protecting all residents um, uh, and from discrimination based on race or national origin. The ordinance passed by a vote of 6-1 to 1. It codifies, which is really important, Mayor Bala's first executive order. Um, and uh, which was that Hoboken is a fair and welcoming city. The preamble of the Hoboken Trust Act affirms Hoboken's values, that Hoboken's diversity is a source of our strength, that local enforcement of federal immigration laws undermines public safety. And, Emily was very strong about the need, the importance of public safety uh, by making a clear demarcation between federal immigration and local law enforcement. We're enhancing the ability to have cooperation and trust between immigrant communities and law enforcement, which protects all of us in Hoboken. By clarifying the city's role and its commitment to protecting residents' privacy and rights, the Hoboken Trust Act strengthens community policing and commits to all Hoboken residents that they can live and pursue their livelihoods in peace and prosperity. You can read the Hoboken Trust Act and the link that I'm going to put into my comments. This is a picture of me in front of Jersey City Hall leading a No Kings chant for that. Next up, City Council said enough is enough, stands with local small businesses against harassing litigation. We on the City Council, people who serve the community expect our local leaders to support locally owned and locally operated businesses that are model neighbors in the community. Unfortunately, a member of Team Tiffany's slate, council candidate Liz Techo, and Hoboken for Responsible Cannabis, so-called Responsible Cannabis, an organization that Ms. Techo co-founded and served as president, are suing the Hoboken Planning Board for a unanimous vote that permitted Blue Violets to operate at its location, where it's been operating since April of 2024 at 628 Washington Street without complaint. They're also suing the business. They have, in a misguided case, has forced the business to spend over $100,000 defending it. Hoboken City Council clarified the cannabis ordinance. 2 of the 4 dispensaries applied and got approvals from the Hoboken Cannabis Review Board before the City Council made a requirement that future dispensaries not be within 600 feet of a school. These folks had already applied, had already gotten approved by the planning board, but we made it crystal clear if there was ever any doubt in our ordinance that those folks who applied for approval before April 28, 2002, were permitted to operate. So this applies to 2 of the 4 operating dispensaries. One is called Village Dispensary on the 500 block of Washington Street, and then Blue Violets on the 600 block of Washington Street, are both technically within 600 feet of a school, but are both operating as good neighbors, and they've made big investments into their spaces. We cleared this up. It passed, and and I have a link to that ordinance, which makes clear and clarifies the 600-foot rule is prospective only. And in fact, a few months ago, the Appellate Division of New Jersey Appellate Court, unanimously in a well-reasoned 39-page decision, affirmed that Blue Violets have the right to operate at their location. And the City Council actually passed a resolution uh, at 2 meetings ago, which called for Ms. Techo and Hoboken for Responsible Cannabis to immediately drop the case, to stop harassing this business, what appears to be, a vindictive case. And it also called on Councilwoman Fisher, who is obviously the head of the Team Tiffany slate, to finally get on the right side of this issue after much fear and division had been spread a few years ago when these dispensaries were scheduled to open in our community, and publicly urge my council colleague, Ms. Fisher, to urge her council running mate to drop the case. Again, this is not Phil Cohen saying this. This is the majority of the city council called on Ms. Fisher to let her running mate know that she should drop the case. to call on Hoboken for responsible cannabis to drop the case, to call for Ms. Tetra to drop the case. And you can read the city council's resolution calling for them to immediately drop the case in the links to my comments. And that was a few weeks ago, and the case still continues. So a member of the community who is a customer at the store started a petition to put an end to the litigation against Blue Violets Dispensary. You can see it's addressed to Ms. Techo. It's addressed to the members of Hoboken for Responsible Cannabis and to Hoboken Councilmember Tiffany Fisher to put an end to the seemingly vindictive litigation against this business. You can sign it. I encourage you to do it. There's a link that I'm going to put to in my comments if you want to go sign the petition and basically tell these folks enough is enough. Let these folks run their business at this point. They're good neighbors. You could walk by it and not even realize it's there. For all the fear and fear mongering relating to this industry, 2% of every sale goes to our budget, goes to our community, offsets your tax increases, and provides a service that people really want. So I encourage folks to sign this petition. Let's see. I'm going to stop my sharing for a sec. We have a new development which was recently approved. It is a development by Advance over at the location by 15th and Grand. I want to just tell folks a little bit about it. It is there had been litigation relating to the Harlow. Advance is the same developer of this project at 15th and Adams as the folks at the Harlow, which is over by the viaduct over at 15th, 14th and Willow. But when Advance built the Harlow, it did not have the requisite number of affordable units. So there was litigation relating to that. That litigation settled by requiring additional affordable housing to be built in this Advance project over at 15th and Adams. So this project will include 26 affordable housing units, 5 workforce housing units, a privately operated pickleball facility. Pickleball is super popular, and I think people will enjoy having that there. There'll be $1 million community givebacks for upgrading infrastructure in the neighborhood. The project will have storage for 117 bikes. It will also have a large green roof and underground storage detention to manage rainfall and protect flooding in the neighborhood. And you can learn more about that project in the link that I'm going to share. I'm also going to include a link to the Northwest Redevelopment Plan, this has been built as part of that long-going effort by the community and by the city council. So we're going to talk a little bit about voting. There's a picture of me voting. There it is. This is me voting by mail. That's how I tend to vote. There are many important things on the ballot. We have, in addition to mayor and city council, we have the governor's race. I'm endorsing Mikey Sherrill. I think that she would be a fantastic governor for the state of New Jersey. And I also think that she's a great way to stand up to what's happening in Washington, the overreach with ICE and everything else, the cutting of fundings for Medicare, SNAP payments, getting benefits and funding for our community. I think voting for Mikey Sherrill is very important. State Assembly, we have Mayor Bala and Katie Brennan are on the ballot. I think I might have a picture of me. And yeah, that's me and Mikey with my daughter Madeline when she was running for Congress the first time. That's Katie Brennan, the night that she won the primary election. She and Mayor Bala are on the ballot for State Assembly. There's the election for mayor. And Emily Jabbour is my choice. The City Council, you saw Joe, Caitlin, and Steve, who I think are great. Hoboken Board of Education election is also happening. My friend Antonio Grania, who also served on the zoning board with Steve and myself, is on the ballot. He is fantastic, and he's running with Leslie Norwood and Lizzie Velez, who are a great team that I think will serve the community well. Uh, you can vote in person. Uh, you can vote by mail. You can vote on election day. There was a picture of me voting by mail. If you want to submit your completed vote by mail, you can either mail it in, as I did at a post office box, or you can drop it off at 2 drop boxes. There's one outside City Hall. Actually, there are 3 in Hoboken. One's by City Hall, 94 Washington Street at Newark. 2 is by the Stevens University Gateway, Hudson and 6th Street. And 3 at Monroe Street between 7th and 8th. Those are 3 drop-off locations. You can also drop it off in person at the Hudson County Board of Elections at 257 Cornelison Avenue, 4th floor in Jersey City. You can submit your application for a ballot in person right up until 3 p.m. On the day before the election, November 3rd. And voting in person has never been easier in Hoboken. We have a new uptown location for early voting, which is great. It happens to be in the 5th Ward at Mile Square Theater at 420 14th Street. And there's also one at the place where folks have been used to voting early over in City Hall in the 1st floor conference room at 94 Washington Street and at Newark Street. You can enter on the Newark Street side. So we have the 2 locations. They started on Saturday. They're going to go through Sunday, November 2nd, through next Sunday. From Monday through Saturday, you can vote from 10 in the morning to 8 p.m. and on Sunday from 10 in the morning to 6 p.m. You do not need an appointment. You just go in and vote as if you were voting in the booth on election day. A lot of people have enjoyed doing this and do it at your convenience, and you don't have to worry about voting on election day. Election day in person. You can also vote on election day at your traditional polling location. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4th, a week from tomorrow. If you want to know where you vote, I'm going to have links where you can find where you vote. So you can check on the links and check that out. For the folks who ask questions, I got a question from Marilyn Hoffman. I got a question from Manny Rivera Soler. Unfortunately, it came through just as they were signing off. So I'm sorry for that. I'm going to forward the questions. I'm going to ask them to respond to you guys directly with your questions. Certainly, when I said that I didn't see any questions, I hadn't seen any. So by the time these came through, unfortunately, it was the end of their time. I encourage everyone to vote. Whomever you're voting for, get out there, vote. Your vote's important. It's what makes our democracy great. There are no kings. The power comes from the people. You need to vote. You need to have your voice heard. Whomever it is that you're supporting, get out there, vote. It couldn't be easier to do. It's really important. I want to thank my guests today. I want to thank Mayoral Candidate Emily Jabbour. I want to thank Emily for making the time to be with us today. I want to thank the slate that consists of the Team Emily folks. Councilman Joe Quintero, Commissioner Steve Firestone, and Caitlin Layson. Be well, everyone. Don't forget to vote. Enjoy the beautiful fall weather. I hope everyone has a great Hoboken and Halloween. It's one of the great days of the year. The houses look great, and we'll see you out there on the streets. Bye, everybody. Talk to you in a few weeks.